Hello and welcome back. I am having to do the show from the bed today because today is not one of my good days, but I am still going to try and get through this. Maybe a little bit more difficult today because this is going to be an hour show. And the reason that I made this one an hour show is because we got a lot to talk about. When it comes to restoring honor and pride, back to black entertainers and back to black entertainment. This is part 7 of our Restoring Pride back to the black community. And, of course, we save the best for last. So I'm going to start you off with the point that was part of the discussion this morning. And this one is called, How Did They Make You Become a Sambo? How did whites make you become a Sambo from a black actor that was good? How did they make you play a bad cop and play a gangster in the hood? How did whites get you to become a Sambo, counting white men as your friends? How did they get you to act like idiots, calling your black people some ends? How did whites get you to become a Sambo, while all of your white slave masters laughed to see black men dressed up like women with little black children in their pattern? How did whites get you to become a Sambo? You lived to follow us all. Black men in the past did it for the Negro League, but now white men just own you all. What if you hadn't become a Sambo, spending your money to be like whites? Can you imagine all the good you could have done if you had put your money towards the fight? Who knows, one day you might wake up and decide to make it right and be that hero you were meant to be and save black children's lives. In the meantime, we'll keeping on, though our resources may be feeble. One day you may decide to join in. Till then, all power to the people. And that is our Black Panther poem from NEETTA Black. For our black entertainers, now, there's quite a few things that the black community has to deal with when it comes to the degradation that has become synonymous with black entertainment. We saw in the 80s this a similar, not the same, but just with similar parts in the 80s with punk rock groups, white punk rock groups. And you had black children, at the time, that thought of these punk rock groups as crazy, as, they look weird, they, dress weird, all this good stuff. And so you had, rockers, these white rockers that, wore mascara and long blonde hair or dark hair, and these are the men. And, they would be wearing these tight pants with, cut-off shirts, and they would have poison on their shoes and shirts and clothing, and you saw white females that were considered groupies, and they would have the same goth mascara, the goth hairdo, dressed in goth clothing, and or the 70s clothing, the throwback era, if you will, and they were considered, very loose, and they would follow these white rockers, punk rockers around and do whatever that they had to do in order to get backstage or in the concert or whatever. And so you had people walking around with dog collars on and different piercings all over the bodies and demonic tattoos everywhere. And it was really, really crazy to see all of these white folks. You saw white girls with these big baggy pants on and um, dressing like boys and little cut-off tank tops with, hip hugger pants that were wide in the leg and dragged on the ground, and half the time showed, the cracks of their behinds. And you had the white males who wore, these jeans with no belt and no underwear, and the jeans would be halfway down their hips, and you would be able to see the cracks of their behinds, and they walk around with no shirts on. It was just a really ridiculous scene, and you had white children listening to this music, which was considered devil worshiping music, and white children were killing themselves and killing each other over this music, and white girls and their little white boyfriends were committing suicide and all kinds of different things. And so, of course, white folks seeing, especially white mothers, seeing this happening, they took their fight to Congress against the white punk groups. And they got, labels put on music. They got some record companies, to straighten up and fly right. They got a lot of the punk rock bands banned and became obsolete and all different things. This fight was a fight that they took all the way to the top. And in order to save these white children's lives and keep these white children from jumping off bridges and stabbing themselves and cutting themselves up and committing suicide by taking overdoses of, different chemicals and whatnot. So now here comes the 80s and 90s, the mid-80s and the 90s, where you got black children now hanging with these same white children. And it only took 5 years for black children from 1985 to 1989 into 1990 for you to see black children starting to dress crazy. But it was just a small segment. Most of them were more of the neat dressing, even though it may have been loud colors, or they still had that neatness about them. You would have the jogging suits. You would have the sweatpants with maybe the T-shirt and the little jacket to go over it. They still had their minds, even though you saw rap music starting to get them talking crazy. But they still basically dress pretty nice. You think of the groups, people like in New Edition, where when they came out, they were all dressed. And so the children that emulated them, because contrary to what people say, while art often imitates life, there's a segment of life that always imitates art. So you have a segment of the population that is black women in the 70s, the entertainers, which a lot of the children emulate and try to be like, is they go from wearing dresses at their knees and neat clothing and hair done up, well, and they start wearing, hot pants, halter tops, and go-go boots. Well, you're going to have a segment of young girls that do that as well. And so if that is not curtailed quickly, then it becomes a trend, and you start seeing more and more young girls dressing like that, and that's what the black community saw. So you have in the 80s, you done got past the free love and all the different scares of STD and all this different stuff. And now you're in the 80s, where you have a shifting of focus. You're shifting away from black-owned, black entertainment, or at least black-controlled. White Jews still owned a lot of and controlled a lot of black music and black industry. But you had black record labels who demanded certain creative control, if you will. And so the black music reflected the black population, reflected the black self-esteem and different things about, black culture and black community.